Hello and welcome to 30 Days of Hoya. Today we will take a look at Hoya australis. As you can see, I have several different Hoya australises here. There is one more that is outside and it's the largest of them all, but it has some peduncles on it, so I didn't really want to move it because it's a bit cooler inside than it is outside. So I was afraid if I bring it in and then bring it out again, it may blast the peduncles. So we're not going to do that. We're trying to give it a chance to bloom. But we still have one here with peduncles that you will get to see. First of all, I would like to tell you that Hoya australis is of course native to Australia. It is also native to Oceania and it extends to Southeast Asia to the parts of Fiji Islands. This is a Hoya that is in the intermediate range, so from 15 to 35 degrees of Celsius or from 60 to 95 degrees of Fahrenheit. When it comes to light, they can take a lot of light. I have two different australises here, and of course I have this cultivar. The biggest one here, the green one, is hoyaaustralis subspecies tenuipes, and there is a variegated one here, and it's called Lisa. The name of the cultivar is Lisa. There is also a small one, Hoya subspecies tenuipes, and I wanted to show you this one because this one is grown in different conditions than the big one. In the second frame you can see slightly better, this one has very pale leaves, and the reason for that it's because it's growing almost directly under my LED light. And what this does, it helped me to get several peduncles on this plant. I count, I think 4 of them, and this was a cutting that was recently rooted. The original cutting goes like this. I'm not sure if you can see it, and all of this is the new growth, and it just extends, and then the vine goes all the way here. And it's also one of those Hoyas that just grows very fast. It pushes out these long vines with no leaves, and then later it gets leaves. But I'm very happy to see it has peduncles, and I do think that the LED light helped there, even though the leaves are slightly pale. The new leaves will be quite red if you give them a lot of light. The second one is grown in much less light. This one is grown, I would say, 40 centimeters away from a 28 watt LED light. I'm not quite sure what the wattage on that is. And you can see the color is deeper green. And this one is much slower to grow as well. This one was rooted also fairly recently, but it only pushed out these 2 leaves. So I will probably give it a bit more light to see if we can grow a bit faster. Hoya australis Lisa was also very close to my LED light, but it didn't grow so fast, and I cut it back twice. One was a gift for one of my friends for a birthday, and then the other cutting was also a gift. And I was confident, even though it's not so big, I was confident to cut it back because it pushed out this new vine here. And it has these very large leaves. It's, I think, maybe the largest on the plant. So I do hope it continues to grow from this point, and I could possibly even cut it back a bit more and then root this separately as a cutting, which I might do. This plant is actually division. It's from a larger plant. I bought it as a division from a larger plant. And the thing is, the cutting that I rooted for my friend started to grow, and it's growing much faster than this one. So I do think that perhaps the roots are not fully recovered yet, and then I might just try to get another cutting of this plant and just root it for myself. From my experience, it seems that Hoya australis subspecies tenuipes grows much faster than Hoya australis subspecies australis. Some people say that this one grows fast as well. For me, that hasn't been the case at all. And there are some differences. It may look on the camera similar to you, but if you see them in person, they're quite different. This one has more succulent leaves. Hoya australis subspecies tenuipes has thinner leaves, they're more flexible. These ones are very, very succulent. They are also slightly pubescent. There is a new leaf on the way, so that makes me happy. This is of course the version with yellow margins. For me, it seems that this one, every time it grows, it pushes 1 or 2 new leaves, and then the third one just dries out. And then it starts again. So it's very slow to grow. I received it as a rooted cutting, and I think I received it in October. It had maybe 3 or 4 leaves, but It did put out some new leaves for me, but not a lot, and I'm still waiting to see a longer vine coming from this plant. I do hope that happens this year. I had my Hoya australis subspecies tenuipes, the big one that you don't see in this video, in my northwest facing window, and it did produce peduncles as soon as I got it, but I let it just dry out for way too long. I was afraid of overwatering, so I severely underwatered and it dropped the peduncle. The second time around, it produced a bit more peduncles, but then I knocked it over and the peduncles just broke off. So that one did not have luck at all and it tried to bloom several times, but it just had me to prevent it. And that's why I left it outside now. I'm not going to move it. I'm not going to do anything with it. And let's just hope it blooms. I felt okay about moving the one that's in semi-hydroponics that you can see here because it stays in this room, so I don't think there isn't a temperature change or anything that would cause the buds to drop, I would say. I'm not sure if we will be able to get a close-up of the peduncles. There is just one peduncle there. So there is peduncle, another there. The ones that are grown in mix are in bark, perlite, leca, ceramis, cocoa peat, and general potting mix. So this is an epiphytic mix and it's very fast to dry out and the water just runs through the mix. The one that is in leca, it's in semi-hydroponics. So you can see we have a lot of roots. So I use this kind of as a cover pot. Because the reservoir is here, and if I move it, I don't want to spill the water. This is the size of the reservoir, so the holes are punched all around there, and the water should stay in the reservoir, but of course I tipped it over now, so the water is in the, well, in the cache, I want to say a cache pot, but it's a cache cup. I don't know. So anyways, that's how I keep them because I don't want the water to spill. The one that is staying in semi-hydroponics gets water every 6 or 7 days. Usually that's the amount of time that it will need for water to disappear from the reservoir. Sometimes I don't really wait until the water disappears from the reservoir, and sometimes I wait too long. So I'm kind of guilty of that. The ones that are in potting mix, I would say they get water every 7 to 10 days, depending on the conditions. So with hoyaustralis, you can let it dry out a bit more. It's quite resilient when it comes to that. The one time that I did let my hoyaustralis tenuipes dry out, I let it go 3 or 4 weeks without water, and the leaves were fine, but the buds dropped. So don't do that. I would still make sure that it's hydrated. Don't go crazy with underwatering, but of course it doesn't need so much water like some other Hoyas. I would be a bit careful. It's all really trial and error. You have to get to know your plant. I can give you tips, but that doesn't mean it will work for you. Maybe in your conditions they will dry out faster, and you don't really need to wait for a long time to water, which is fine. So you kind of need to learn how to read your plant and to see when it needs water. With Hoya australis subspecies tenuipes, you will see that the leaves will get kind of floppy and wrinkly, so they will lose the firmness that they have, and that means that the plant is very thirsty. It does happen to me sometimes. With this one, Hoya australis subspecies australis, I never saw any signs really that the plant is thirsty, and even when I water it more, it still loses some of those newer leaves. So I'm not really sure what's up with that. My friend from Sweden suggested that maybe it has spider mites, but I did check, I did spray with paraffin oil and it's still happening. But we will see if it will finally start to push out some new growth and take off. Hoya australis has a really lovely flower. It's a white flower, and the shape of the flower is quite interesting too. It is said that flower has a very strong smell to it, and it can be overpowering, especially when you have many of the peduncles open. I do hope that on the green form I get flowers very soon. It does seem that it takes a long time from the peduncle to the flower. I can tell you that this one has had peduncles for 3 or 4 weeks, and they are growing very, very slowly. Hoya australis is also not a Hoya that is difficult to get. You can find them in garden centers. This one, Hoya australis subspecies australis, you cannot really find in a garden center, or I haven't seen it. And I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe it is because of the slower growth. I'm not sure, but you can get it from a nursery. If you have a Hoya or orchid nursery, I have seen it in Europe in a cacti nursery, Ulig in Germany. These two, Hoya australis subspecies tenuipes, you can find in a garden center. So you will be able to find those, and they are becoming more and more available this year. I would say that Hoya australis is a very suitable plant for a beginner, especially the green version, but even Lisa, it's not that challenging at all. Thank you for watching. This was Hoya australis, and I will see you again in our next 30 Days of Hoya.